Good afternoon. Afternoon. I hope everyone enjoyed their workshops and lunch today. This afternoon, we are going to be here in the plenary for Governor O'Malley, and then we'll have a town hall that Robert will lead. We'll go off to another round of workshops, come back to elect our national officers and debate resolutions, and that will conclude the day, except for our CAN community people who will meet separately and elect their board members to our national board. So, let's begin. Vitold set us up a lot on issues at Social Security, and now we are honored to have Martin O'Malley, most recently Social Security Commissioner, but before that, a very successful two-term governor of Maryland. Before that, a very successful mayor of Baltimore. And before that, a very successful city councilman in Baltimore, where he has been an innovator in making government work better, making schools get better. I know we have Loretta Johnson, the former Secretary-Treasurer of the National AFT with us. They're very, very long friends. Welcome, Loretta. And President Biden nominated Governor O'Malley to be the 17th Commissioner of Social Security because of his work in innovation, both at the state and local level, of bringing methods and new processes to government. He won many awards in Maryland, and the city of Baltimore won many awards when he was governor and mayor. So he's been obviously working on Social Security since those other people took over. And that four-letter abbreviation group that begins with a D, that a lot of us, including, as you know, we are in court about that with AFSCME and AFT in Baltimore. So let us welcome Governor Martin O'Malley to our convention. Yeah.
Hey, thanks very, very much. So many people standing. Wow, it's obvious I wasn't responsible for collecting your trash on a twice weekly basis. It is awesome to be with all of you. Are you the designated clicker? Who's the clicker? No. Are you the clicker? What is your name? Juan. Juan, thank you, Juan. It's awesome to see Loretta Johnson, one of my ride or die friends. This lady, just such a force in the labor movement in not just Baltimore City, and not just the state of Maryland, but as you know, nationally. And when I had the honor to work for Loretta, we made our public schools in Maryland the #1 for 5 years in a row, thanks to hardworking teachers. And I also love NEA. I love AFT and I love NEA. So don't want any NEA people coming up and saying, well, you know, we represent a lot of it. I know. It's great. It's great. It's good to be with all of you. I want to thank President Roach for his leadership, and also want to thank Rich Fiesta. You know, there is, your executive director is part of an ecosystem, if you will, of organizations that are fighting hard to defend Social Security against the onslaught that I know we told you about earlier today. I mean, the mass firings, you know, taking whole offices and just telling them today's your last day, put your stuff in a cardboard box, get the hell out, paying people our money to quit without any knowledge transfer. You know, just don't let the door hit your ass on the way out, leave today. And these genius business people were surprised that in an agency whose staffing had already been reduced to a 50-year low, while us baby boomers swelled their ranks to an all-time high, they were surprised that when they shoved 9,000 people out the door, it hurt customer service. Who needs a business degree to figure that out? So, but that's where we are. So this is what I thought I'd do today to maximize our time. Some of you, I've already been hit with a couple of, look, if I apply and my wife has this sort of questions, I got to tell you, there's some experts here. Wetold is a better person to talk to about the applications process, or Laura from Portland. Laura, you still here? All right. Laura will be setting up a claims counter on the other side of the plexiglass windows in a second to answer those thorny questions. How psyched up were you all that WEP GPO was done by President Biden before he left office? That was the largest expansion of Social Security since the disability program was signed into law by Dwight Eisenhower. So let me do this. Let me begin with just a couple quick stories. I'm going to click you through some slides. And then we have some time for Q&A. Is that how this works? Okay. All right. You want between Q&A and is it half hour we have? Or okay. I don't want to weasel. I don't want to collect a bargain on you. Flexible accordion session. Okay. All right. Well, that's helpful. My wife and I recently had this awesome experience that we've never experienced before, and that is called being grandparents. No, thank you. Welcome to the club. That's what this lady said. Welcome to the club. It's so fun. I'm one of those gushy, stupid grandfathers that at a gas station will show the attendant, "You want to see my grandson?" I happened to be over there spending some quality time at the apartment where they were living. Now they've moved someplace with grass, but it was the apartment where they were living. And they were both on, paternity leave, maternity leave. And my son-in-law comes in with the mail from downstairs, and he says, "Oh, look what the postman brought to us from Social Security." Now, I knew from having had the honor to lead that agency in a really difficult time that we send out, about roughly 3 million such letters to new parents every year. But I'd never been on the receiving side of that. So as I held my grandson, I watched as my son-in-law opened up that letter to the parents of, and my daughter looking over his shoulder at it. And I tell you, it was a magical and meaningful moment. It wasn't just about the card. It wasn't just about the number. It wasn't just about that individual little baby. What it said was, this child's important to his country. And our country is important to this child. And ain't nobody going to take that from us. All things are temporary, including Donald Trump. Thank God. And it's been said that the only thing that does survive in this world is love. And that is certainly what's at the core of Social Security. We are not of the mind of Elon Musk and those types who think that empathy is a weakness in the Western mind. On the contrary, we believe that the power of our nation is not the size of our armies or the amount of wealth our wealthiest people can amass. No, it's the compassion and it's the care we demonstrate for one another. And so, with Social Security, we choose to feed the hungry. We heal the sick. We clothe the naked. We shelter the homeless. We care for widows and orphans, those in the dawn of life and those in the dusk of life. Every soul. And that's why the fight for Social Security is very much a fight for the soul of the United States of America. If I leave you with nothing else today, what I hope happens here, man, what a big crowd. Congratulations. And as I was walking through, Mr. President, the area, I saw some of your members there, and I realized that another reason for wanting a strong retirement is so you can sit in front of slot machines and lose your money. I never gamble myself. I'd never do something like that. I'd never take on odds. Where the hell was I going with that? What I hope is when you go home, whether it's to Pocomoke or wherever y'all are from, that when you return to your table of democracy from this one, that you're able to engage, maybe even with those people around your family, We all have some family members, that watch only the Fox. And so the hope is that I'm going to relate to you what smart people like we told and Laura and others taught me in the course of my service to you at that great agency. And in plain language, we're going to blow up a few of the big lies that Trump and Musk and those guys have been really amping up to tell. And I hope that, armed with that truth, you'll be able to go back to your own table of democracy. And if I leave you with nothing else, it's these two things. The big challenges of the customer service at Social Security and the big challenge of making sure it's strong enough to pay 100% of benefits, not just until 2033, but for 75 years long after that. Both of those challenges are solvable problems. There are some things we can't control, but these are solvable problems. So let's begin. We'll talk about the future of Social Security. I wasn't here at your session, but I know you laid out the challenges, the cuts, and those things. Back when Social Security is 90 years old. 90 years old. If it were a Ponzi scheme, it would have been had a lifetime of about 9 months, but it's not a Ponzi scheme, so it's 90 years. And when it was signed into law, Roosevelt said, in a big quote that we also had in the security stat room, overlooking our shoulders as we were turning things around at an agency whose staffing had been reduced to a 50-year low, he summarized, look, here's the mission. We seek the security of the men, women, and children of the nation. Period. Full stop. That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. Now, 2 years into the administration, on Valentine's night, I was minding my own business on York Road, in Baltimore, and I got a call from Neera Tanden from President Biden's White House. And she said, Governor, what's the, after initial pleasantries, what's the agency that has the greatest numbers of interactions with Americans day in and day out after the IRS and the post office, hence it's headquartered in Baltimore? Social Security. She said yes, and because of congressional neglect, their staffing has been reduced to a 50-year low. If you think of it like an insurance company that has kind of 9 major lines of service delivery, the initial claims applications, your applications for benefits, she said they're all going in the wrong direction fast. And, it is, not to sugarcoat it, it really needs to get turned around quickly because 8 million people are put on hold for an hour and a half or more on the phone lines and everything else. And I said, well, that's bad because that'll flip a lot of those blue states red come election day if you don't get somebody in there to fix it. She said, I'm glad you feel that way. And I said, who do you have? She said, we thought maybe you would do it. And she said, full disclosure, at the moment, to no fault of their own, it's a customer service dumpster fire, but the president knows how you love dumpster fires. And so I started throwing myself into learning more about Social Security than I'd ever, thought to ask before. And learned even more once we started doing things. We turned around 8 of those 9 metrics, got 2 of them to a 20-year best. Got the wait time on the phone down from 42 and a half to 12 minutes, and that's without counting robots or chat bots as an answer, sort of thing. So here's what I wanted to distill for you a little bit of what I've learned, because when I came out of the agency, when Donald Trump was elected, it started undergoing these ruthless attacks, these big lies. So let's start with a few of the big lies. We'll blow those up right quick. Okay, here's the first big lie. Some of these are new. Some of them are old. All of the big lies conclude with it's unsustainable and it will go bankrupt. They've been saying that about it since it was first created 90 years ago. But here's the new big lies told by Donald Trump and Musk and Doge. There are 12 million dead people that are receiving benefits long after they've been dead. Donald Trump even looked into your representatives of Congress into the camera and said in his first address after being elected again, he said, some of them are as many as 300 years old. He actually said that. And I'd like to, we told, what did a Social Security card look like in Jamestown? That's what I want to know. Because if they're folks, it's total bullshit. Doesn't happen. Social Security is automatically electronically notified every time there's a death certificate that's filed in any one of the 50 states. And there's also a trip if somebody stops billing Medicare over a certain age, that alerts us. It doesn't happen. It's reviewed every year. Infinitesimally small number of people that receive a check or a payment after they die, and usually it's because their pay cycle is in the same week that they pass, and we recover it in probate. Total, unadulterated bullshit. Big lie. The other big lie, immigrants. Man, Elon Musk and those other guys, who was that guy? Gracias? The guy that manages some teacher money or wants to. He was strutting, and they were strutting in front of a big stage with a giant American flag. Trying to do their best imitation of Patton. It's ironic, isn't it? These guys that would never ever serve or send their sons, but they love to be in front of the big flag. So they're shut in front of the big flag, and they have a graph that shows more immigrants coming to the United States of America, and they would have you believe they were all illegal. And what they said was, it's part of the blue conspiracy. You open up the borders, you bring people here, they become permanent Democratic voters, and they milk Social Security for all it has. Folks, illegal immigrants, so-called, have been prohibited from receiving any benefits or even credit for the hours they work or the benefits they pay in since the creation of the program. It doesn't happen. But they do pay in $26 billion a year for the benefit of all of the rest of us. Waste, fraud, and abuse. They would have you believe, he said, Musk, I saw him once also on the Fox, because that courageous guy only had the ability to go on the Fox. He said 40% of the people that call in are just stealing your direct deposit accounts. He says, I've watched them do it all day. I don't know what sort of ketamine he was on when he was watching that, but it doesn't happen. In point of fact, and if there were an inspector general here from Social Security, which there's not because they decapitated every inspector general on day 2. But if you go through the reports, it will tell you that if you were to combine improper payments and fraud in the Social Security Administration program, it amounts to less than 0.3%. Less than 0.3%. I've laid out some of this, by the way, a lot of these plain language rebuttals on a website called Win Back Our Country. I think it's still up, that just has, kind of fact-check things and authoritative things. So if your brother-in-law pushes back on you, you can push back on him. So less than 0.3%. Can we do more about it? Sure, yes. And we were doing more about it. Next one. We can't afford it as a country. It's too much of our GDP, and it just balloons and grows every day. Poppycock. It's been about 4.8% of GDP for the last 40 years. So roughly around 5, it's slated in the next 25 to go up to 6%. And you imagine a more cost-effective way to prevent other sorts of, welfare programs rather than earned benefit programs if we did away with it, or what that would do to consumer spending and the like. So it's just 5% of GDP. It's a very effective program. Next one. Can't fix it without raising taxes on everyone. Au contraire. And we'll come back to this one. But the fix for this, the essence of it is found not only in the reason for the current problem of that big scary depletion date in 2033, but that's also the solution. The solution and the cause are kind of part and parcel of the same thing, called income inequality, which I'll come back to in a second. But John Larson, congressman from Connecticut, great congressman from Connecticut. I nominate John Larson. There we go. So John Larson, those are your Connecticut people. John puts in a bill every year. It has about 200 co-sponsors. And it doesn't add anything to the deficit. What Sheldon Whitehouse says, one in the Senate. This is the other big lie. You can't fix it without busting the deficit. The truth is, Social Security is a pay-as-you-go program. It is not funded by borrowing. Social Security, except for a small amount of the administrative costs, which need not be funded out of general revenues, but Social Security does not contribute anything to the deficit. In fact, Social Security is the only agency that runs a $2.6 trillion surplus, which may explain why they had their sights on it to begin with, right? Why did the bank robbers rob banks? So Social Security is required by law to invest that surplus, which was intentionally built up to cover the lifespans of us baby boomers, this big demographic bulge. And they were required to only invest it in U.S. savings bonds. So Social Security actually, in a way, lends money to the federal government, just like you or I might if we were to buy a bond. Does not contribute to the deficit. In fact, the fixes for it need not contribute a single penny to the deficit, and I'll show you why. Next one. Okay, so those are the big ones. They all end, of course, in therefore Social Security is inevitably going to go bankrupt. Any of y'all from Alabama? There's a guy named Tommy Tuberville down there. And he's running for governor now. Thank God, because he didn't learn a goddamn thing about the federal government while he was there. So Loretta's laughing at me. That's Baltimore talk. That's Baltimore talk. Tuberville's saying, it's a scam. It's all going to collapse. It's all going bankrupt. And, Doug Jones just doesn't want to be honest about it. It's interesting, though, isn't it? It tells you a lot about the potency of this issue, that in a governor's race, they're debating the future of Social Security. Very potent issue for us as Democrats. So potent, so obvious that it's almost overlooked by our own candidates sometimes. Not John Larson, but others. So look, this is the way for when you go home to explain it to your brother-in-law that Social Security works. And this is why, and this is also why we're facing that event in 2033 of the depletion of benefits, an inability of Social Security to pay 100%, unless Congress makes an adjustment, as Congress has every other time we've come up on a deadline like this for 90 years. So, deep breath, hang in there with me for a second. Social Security operates on a 75-year forecast. Show of hands, how many of you operate your own personal budgets on a 75-year forecast? Right? I don't either. But the actuaries make certain assumptions about lifespans, about size of population, about birth rates, all of these sorts of things, about how our economy will look in the future, about where earnings will come from in the future, all of those things. They made an assumption back in 1982, and they said, we know, because of people of my parents' generation, World War II veterans who came home from the war and had big families, that there was going to be this large demographic bubble coming. So when famously Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan had a beer and decided to fix Social Security for all times, some of you are old enough to remember that story, they built in intentionally they built up a surplus that would cover those years when there were a lot more people in retirement years than there typically are people working in the economy, which is something they had to plan for. And that's the headline you see all the time that says, falsely, wrongly, Social Security to go totally dry by 2033. That's not true. But it is true that that surplus is being spent down intentionally and for the purpose they created it, but it's not lasting as long as they thought because of income inequality. In other words, back in 1982, the actuaries, and I talked to Steve Goss, who was there as a younger man in 1982. I said, Steve, what did you all get wrong such that now this is happening in 2033 rather than everybody being hunky-dory through the lifespans of the baby boomers? Was it life expectancy? He said, no, it wasn't any of that. It was income inequality. I said, explain that to me. He said, well, they told us, Social Security only applies to earnings up to a certain level of income. And he said, so they asked us to set it at a level that would capture increases in earnings for the next 40 years. But then all of the things that Ronald Reagan did to kick, wage supports like minimum wage, collective bargaining, and those other things, and the changes he made to the tax code meant that for the next 40 years, unlike the ones after World War II, for the next 40 years after Reagan, the only people that made any money were people in the top 5 or 6% of the economy. That's where the appreciable increases in earnings came from. So instead of us capturing 90% of future dollars earned in America, we only captured 80%. And that's why it's running out of dollars in the surplus sooner rather than later. Tracking? Yeah, that was news to me. I had not heard that explanation. Because the way Social Security works is this, like last year, people working in the economy paid in $1.3 trillion out of their hard-earned paychecks every 2 weeks, most of us. Social Security paid out to beneficiaries who had earned that benefit $1.4 trillion. So where did the difference where did the $100 billion come from? It came out of that surplus. So that's the way it works. It is a pay-as-you-go program, which is why it's lasted 90 years. So let's talk about the real problems and some real solutions. Next one. All of those we went through were false. The truth is this. Next one. Truth is, never missed a payment. Next one. Never missed a payment in 90 years. Never once missed a payment. Next one. But, here's the good news in politically divided times. 87% of Americans, regardless of whether they're Democrats or Republicans, believe that Social Security should be strengthened and made better. Not that it should be dismantled, privatized, done away with, given over to Bitcoin or given over to Elon Musk to do whatever he's going to do with it now that he's stolen all of our personal data already. So that's the good news. 87% of Americans agree. So next one. In fact, go back just one. Rich, there was an article that they just published in The Hill. Are you going to share that with people later, maybe? They just published an article I wrote in The Hill about this. And there was a senator. Who was the senator? You tipped me to this. What was that guy's name?
Bernie Moreno, for you Ohioans.
Yeah. So, miracle of miracles. A senator named Bernie, not that one. A senator named Bernie, who's a Republican from Ohio, said that he doesn't understand why wealthy people shouldn't pay the same rate into Social Security on their income that everybody else does. He said it out loud. He said it out loud. He said out loud what privately senators in my confirmation process kind of intimated to me. But he actually said it out loud. And then he doubled down on it. When Rich, kind of posted something, he doubled down. He said, yep, that's damn right. That's what I said. So next one. Thank you. Here are the real challenges we face. Customer service. Second one. Declining buying power of benefits, because the cost of living for elderly among us is higher and has become higher than even it was 20 years ago. And the last one is the long-term ability to pay 100% of benefits. Now, while it is true that because of the pay-as-you-go nature of Social Security would still pay 76 or 80% of benefits, even if Congress did nothing and we hit that cliff. If you're one of those people whose only income is Social Security, and that's what you live on, that 20% cut could send you into living underneath a bridge rather than under a roof. Next one. So each of these is, repeat it with me, people, each of these is a solvable problem. What kind of problem? Solvable problem. You mean each of these is a solvable problem? Yes, indeed it is. Okay. This is a graph that you can't unsee, and I know you all probably can't even begin to see it to unsee it from back there. So we'll share these with you after the fact as well. But the blue graph, you see the steps going up, 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 up? Those are active beneficiaries. All of us on the wheel of life, or the escalator of life, growing numbers of us. Every day when I was at Social Security for that remarkable year, watching those folks run up a downward moving escalator, they hit a new all-time high in active customers they were serving. Every single day was a new all-time high. And that red line is staffing. No good reason for it. The benefits are mandatory. Why shouldn't the staffing be mandatory? It's the same dollars you put in for your benefits that mostly pay for all of the staffing. It's ridiculous. But whether it's from benign neglect on one side of the aisle in Congress or malicious intent on the other, right around here, they started just level funding Social Security. And when you level fund an agency that's 85% staff and 15% IT, how do you make up for that? Well, you attrit down. You just let the Grim Reaper take out staff so you can land on the carrier deck of balance. See where it takes this precipitous dive right here? This is DOGE. That's DOGE. The people that came in, illegally fired, paid your money to other people to leave, totally wiped out 9 regions, wiped out the senior executive service, created a hostile work environment, and now wonder why nobody wants to work there. Real business geniuses, huh? Next one. If you compare the effectiveness of Social Security when it operated at a high level of customer service, Social Security operated on an overhead to benefits paid of 1.2%. Compare that to the private sector insurance companies. Allstate operates 19% overhead. Liberty Mutual, Liberty Bibberty, operates on 23% overhead. You could take, if you, Congress, wanted to, you could take them back up to 1.2% between now and until that event in 2033, and it would only advance the arrival of that date in 2033 by 30 days. That's how small the administrative overhead is. Why are we doing this to ourselves? This is a totally solvable problem. Next one. Here's the second one. Declining buying power of benefits. So one side he says that the power of Social Security benefits for retirees has declined by 20%. In John Larson's bill and some other bills, they address this by doing a number of things. Increasing the first primary insurance amount, bend point above the current law level. Also shifting from the consumer price index for the COLA calculation. How many of you wait with bated breath for the arrival of your COLA news every day? Big stuff. Shifting that instead to consumer price index for the elderly, CPIE, for those of you acronyming along with us, and also doing some other things that we used to do, honestly. Continuing benefits for children to disabled or deceased workers until age of 22, or if they're continuing to be in college or vocational school or high school. All of these things are totally affordable. Next one. And this is the one where you see most of the big scary headlines. Unless Congress makes the required adjustments, as it has many times before, Social Security will only be able to pay 76% of earned benefits by 2033. So, next slide. How do we solve this? Scrap the cap. Scrap the cap. I see I'm already preaching to the converted. But Dr. King says it's important to preach to the choir, otherwise they stop singing. Maybe we should ask it this way. How many of you don't know what scrap the cap means? Be honest. Okay. All right. How many think you can explain it better than anybody else? All right. Explain for all of us what scrap the cap means.
We're going to take the cap off of your earnings that you're going to pay on every dollar that you earn.
There you go. There you go. So right now, we only pay up to $182,000 of anybody only pays up to the first $182,000 we earn. Only 6% of us ever earn more than $182,000. So a lot of the people around your tables of democracy that you'll go home to will be surprised when they learn that if a family that makes $182,000 pays about $11,000 of that into Social Security. But a person that makes $182 million also only pays $11,000 into Social Security. And most Americans think that's not fair. Why should a janitor at Trump Tower pay out of every paycheck all through the year? And the owner of Trump Tower stops paying like 30 seconds after the ball drops on New Year's in Times Square. So, and friends, that's how we guarantee that Social Security, there is no cap like that when it comes to Medicare. And next slide, and this is what it looks like on a graph. if we were to pass John Larson's bill and scrap the cap for all dollars above $250,000. Now, for a time, it creates a little bit of a donut hole, but over the course of time, that donut hole goes away. President Biden indicated he'd be for scrapping the cap on income above $400,000. So John Larson's bill will also increase the benefits, like those ones we articulated before, switching to CPIE and increasing the monthly benefits. Sheldon Whitehouse's doesn't do that, but both of them allow Social Security to pay 100% of benefits into the far future. This one kind of goes off the graph. This is the 250,000. This black one, by the way, is where we're headed right now. Not a good trend line for the surplus, depleted by 2033. But if you scrap the cap on income above 250,000, and this was, I'm not making this up, this was from the actuary at Social Security and the CBO and the other people that review these bills. This is where it goes. And this final date, for those of you with the binoculars reading in the back, is, that's 2090, so this must be the year 3000. I don't know about you, but I'm going to be done by then. Not staying for here. I'm really concerned about here, though. I'm very, very concerned about here. So next one, final one, I think. Last few. So, the solvable problem. You got to let Social Security spend the dollars you've already paid to access your benefits for the administrative oversight. They are the hardest working, most decent group of people I've ever had the honor to work with in my life. And, but they need more of them. We need more. So restore Social Security's 1.2% for customer service. Ideally, make it a mandatory thing. You know, make it a mandatory thing. Why should this be in the jump ball of discretionary? You know, for 10 years, they hadn't even given them their own appropriations hearing. That's crazy. As big as the second one. Increase the buying power of benefits to reflect the true cost of living. Third one, scrap the cap at some point. 300,000, 400,000, whatever. Scrap the cap that currently gives a huge windfall to the very wealthiest of Americans at the expense of the Social Security fabric that holds us together as one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and economic justice for all. Next one, conclusion. As John Kennedy said, to govern is to choose. I say we choose to preserve Social Security for all time. Thanks.
These IOUs?
Yeah, let's comment on both of them. And all of these are fair. There's a lot of things people believe because they've heard it so many times. One of them is that money was taken out of Social Security by the Bushes, the Presidents Bush, to fund the Iraq War, and they never ever put it back, or alternatives like that. You know, so-and-so took the money and they never put it back. That's not true. There has not been any raiding of Social Security and a failure to put the money back. So that's not true. One caveat on that is this. Social Security is required to buy bonds. And when you buy U.S. bonds, it is true that they are ultimately backed up with the full faith and credit of the United States and have to be paid back. So it is true that surplus is in bonds. And since it's in bonds, Treasury can use it. But at the end of the year, like at the end of my year, we said, hey, we need that $100 billion in order to hit benefits. And Janet Yellen cut the check for $100 billion, and we paid the benefits. The second thing, Congress not paying in, a lot of people believe that, but it's not true. Congress actually does pay in to Social Security. And they may also have, just like your own teachers' pensions or judges' pensions or governors' pensions, they have those, but it is not true that they don't pay into Social Security. They do. Okay, let's go to another one. Yes, sir, come on now.
Too tall.
And what's your name?
I'm Barry.
Barry, where are you
Kaufman.
from?
I'm the president of the New York State Alliance.
All right.
Okay. The one thing that I've never understood is if Social Security Trust Fund is a self-contained trust fund and it funds Social Security and all the ancillaries, why does Congress get to vote on their administrative budget every year?
Oh, man.
Would it not be better if they took that away and let the Social Security trustees do that? And it would solve a lot of the problems.
Yeah, it was a question I asked as well. You know, when I went to see the greatest of all time, when I went to see Nancy Pelosi shortly after getting confirmed, I laid out to her that same graph that I showed you with the declining staffing, and she said, why isn't Social Security's administrative budget mandatory? The benefits are mandatory. When did that happen? And this is a woman with a mind like a steel trap. She never forgets anything. What I learned when we researched it was that in the very first George Bush administration, I guess he only had one administration, he had a OMB chief who was very, very strong-willed. And over the objections of both CBO, Congressional Budget Office, and GAO, what are the General Auditing Office, GAO, what's that? They decided to start calling it. They decided to say that it was part of the discretionary budget. Now, technically, if you look at, the word they use is not even an appropriation. It's LAE, right? Limited administrative expense. And that's what they approve is a limited administrative expense, most of which comes out of trust fund dollars, except for some related to SSI. So they did that, and we've never been able to get it back. No other agency is that efficient. Yeah, it's so that's why they did it. They've never been able to put it back. We've had Democratic presidents serve for years, and they could well have just reversed that executive decision and said, sorry, Congress. I think what they found attractive about it was if they include, because it's a big agency, a $14 billion administrative cost. It sounds like a lot. Compared to what it does, it's not. It's that small percentage. But when you put it into a bucket in appropriations, which they call the Subcommittee on Labor H, Department of Labor, child care tax credits, H being health, that gives them more ceiling within which to make other discretionary decisions. And so anybody here from Illinois? As Dick Durbin said to me, honestly, the things we find agreement on most easily are more money for child care tax credits, L, labor, and more money for cancer cures, and I'm very proud of how much we put into cancer cures. But that's been at the expense of the agency. So I think that's why it hasn't been undone. It could easily be undone by a president. It doesn't require an act. I don't think it requires an act of Congress either. It's an LAE. And they could easily say, you're on 1.2% for the next 4 years, and we're not going to count this as discretionary spending. And they could even say, if they wanted, we're going to give some deficit relief by taking it all out of the trust fund, which I'd be fine with, as long as wealthy people pay their fair share. Next question. These answers are too long-winded. Yes, in the back. Let's go to somebody in the way back, and then we'll make our way up front. Or if you're standing already, you don't have to run to the back. Oh, I see. He's a wrangler. And what's your name?
Mary Rothschild from Illinois.
From Illinois. Where in Illinois?
No, I'm not related to any of the bankers.
Where in Illinois?
Evanston, Illinois.
I've been to Evanston. I know it well.
So, having had a lot of work on trying to repeal, along with hundreds of other lobbyists, of getting rid of the, repealing the GPO and the windfall. I've had now people come back at me and say who were not affected by that. You are now going to cause Social Security to go even sooner into debt. And because of what we pushed.
Mm-hmm.
But, we're easy targets to complain about.
Mm-hmm.
Is that true?
Yes, that's true. It is true. There was no sort of pay for with that, nor was there even a nickel of money, for all the hardworking men and women that had to then go process all of those changes, which they figured out had to do through automation. But it advanced that 2033 depletion date by about 6 months. That was the cost of that $222 billion with no offset, no later. Now, the good news is, when Congress then complains, oh, we can't adequately fund their administrative budget without an offset, you say, well, that would be a small fraction of what it was to do that $222 billion bipartisan ladle out of it before. So what your friends are telling you is that that is true, because there hadn't been, before that, the contributions, so that is true. But it's still a solvable problem. Yes, we got one here. Well, actually, there's one in the back, and then this veteran up front with his hand raised will come to you next, I think. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, so as a follow-up to our...
And what is your name?
Oh, I'm sorry, Gwendolyn King, Illinois.
The Illinois delegation has taken the microphone. It's like a Democratic National Convention, by God.
So I'm just wondering, as my member indicated here, is it any truth to the possibility of them trying to figure stuff out by means testing those of us that may have a pension and Social Security? A backdoor way to bring back the offset, to take money away from you, okay? So I'm just wondering, is there any discussion about them attempting to means test Social Security recipients and get a bright idea to indicate, well, you got a pension, so this loss won't affect you too much?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you this. I mean, there's talk and there's talk. There hasn't been a bill since 2006 that would reduce benefits. The last one was a Republican bill, and nobody's even put in a bill since then that would, offer by way of solution a reduction of benefits. So nobody's put that in a bill to do that. There are some who have been pushing the notion that wealthier people, that you should means test it for the wealthiest among us. That really doesn't get you much compared to what scrapping the cap gets you. And in this article that Rich will share the link for you with in the Hill, we kind of quote, it was actually 2 Republican senators. It was their kind of, what do you call that, dialogue in committee that was reported upon, where the senator named Bernie, not that one, said that he doesn't understand why wealthy people shouldn't pay the same rate on their earnings, all of their earnings, like the rest of us do. And the other one was Cassidy, I think, from Florida. I'm sorry, Louisiana, thank you. Was it Cassidy or was it Rick Scott that was saying it in that article? Scott, actually it was Scott. Okay, it was, I had the state wrong, I had the name wrong. So it was Florida, and it was Rick Scott saying, I don't think anybody is arguing that there should be a reduction in benefits. So that's not a, I don't think that will be something you see people put into a bill. Beware, though, beware of this. There's an allure to the notion of creating a secret committee to go behind closed doors and just work it out. I'm not sure what your experience has been in the Republic, but in my experience, when people go behind closed doors to work things out, poor people get screwed. So I'm not much in favor of people just working things out behind closed doors. Next question. Yes, sir. Our veteran right here.
Kenneth Williams, Dallas, Texas. I wonder, has there been any research on the effect of the deportations on Social Security? Because I understand many of the undocumented immigrants were paying into Social Security regardless of whether or not they would receive benefits.
Right.
And if we are deporting them and also making it difficult for more immigrants to come to the country, what does that do to Social Security down the line?
Yes, thank you. And were you Air Force? Am I reading that correctly? Yeah, all right. Thank you for your service to all of us. My dad was Army Air Corps before there was an Air Force. 33 missions over Japan and a B-24 Liberator. I love bragging on whenever I can. Yes, it is. I haven't seen an analysis of it lately. There were some footnotes in the last actuary report that was made in my time, the one I signed, that talked about, how much immigrant people, here undocumented contribute, and that's why I remember the number, $26 billion a year is what hardworking people here, but here not in legal status, contribute to Social Security. One of the actuarial assumptions that are made, in addition to birth rates and life expectancy, is a certain percentage steady stream of immigration, the likes of which has always fueled our country's, innovation, greatness, power. But I haven't seen any good reports on it lately, but the thrust of your question is of course, totally valid and truthful, that illegal immigrants pay in. We need a certain amount of immigration, ideally legal, because that strengthens the trust fund for all of us. We're like the Bailey Savings and Loan here, except it's not a savings and loan, it's a pay-as-you-go. I love it when I can speak to audiences that get my old movie references, unlike the college kids. We got some behind me. You got one up there. Okay, let's go up there, and then we'll work our way back here. Two more questions, says the voice of God. I'm sorry? We can't hear you. All the way in the back. There we go.
Okay, that's better. My name is Debbie Pearson. I'm from Fremont, California. And I'm just curious as to when we talk about scrapping the cap, why we have to put any money amount to it at all. If you're working and you're getting a paycheck, why aren't you paying into Social Security like all of us have done? It shouldn't matter how much you make or what you're making from your business, that other people like us are actually making that money for you.
Yeah, so you're saying why even worry about the currently $182,000 scrap? Just get rid of it altogether right now.
Correct.
Right. Yeah, there are some people who believe that that's the way to go. I can tell you, getting elected to office is part of the art of the possible. You advance things, and you also have to keep a governing consensus. And for President Biden's part, he had promised when he was running he would never ever raise taxes on people on incomes below $400,000. So he felt kind of honor bound by that most recent, by that most recent, electoral conversation. So that's why he said 400,000. When I ran for president, I said 250,000 is where we should scrap it at. I don't believe I've seen anybody put in a bill for less than 250,000. But, if you put it to a vote of people present here, my guess is that, most of us would probably say, yeah, scrap it, period. Don't have a cap on it, and don't have a donut hole. You want to go for one? So I go back to the front? Yes, sir.
Al, I'm from Nebraska.
Where are you from in Nebraska?
Omaha.
Omaha.
Yeah.
You know John Kavanaugh?
Yeah, I was there the other day. You gave the talk in the hall, similar to this one, which was very, very, very informative.
I love John Kavanaugh.
Yeah. In a meeting with a former congressman, or it was a staff of a congressman at that time, the congressman made a statement to me. If for instance, he had an income or he didn't really need as much of his Social Security, wouldn't there be some way that people like him could opt to not pay as much or not take as much back? And I says, you could do that every month. Just send him a check. That wasn't what he wanted to hear. But anyway, what the question he brought to me that I couldn't really answer correctly is there's a maximum that they can get from Social Security a year, right?
For benefit, yes.
For benefits.
Correct.
So the argument there was, well, if I make $10 million a year, then I should be able to get as much of percentage of it as anybody else.
Yeah, that's an argument. And there are some who believe so firmly in the philosophy undergirding Social Security that everybody pays in and everybody gets a relatively egalitarian benefit out, that they say, those folks also are like, well, I'm a little uncomfortable with scrapping the cap if they're not going to get anything back more in benefits because, so that's a legitimate, I suppose, argument to make. Doesn't make you a bad person to believe that, but I don't believe that. There's no cap on Medicare, and so the bills would keep that cap in place for the benefits. It's not like if we scrap the cap on what you put in, you suddenly get back a monthly benefit of, $800,000 a month or something. Okay, one more up here. This is the lady? Yeah, did you pre-screen her? Yes. Okay.
Well, I'm from Ann Arbor, Michigan, the home of the NCAA champions, men's basketball. Here's my question. This solvable problem, what is the ask of our elected officials? What should we be asking them? Is there a specific bill?
Yep. Great question. Yeah, ask your elected officials how they're going to avoid a 20% cut in benefits that's coming in 2033. What's your plan? Ask them what their plan is. Ask them to support the John Larson bill, or whatever its latest version is, which would scrap the cap on all income above $250,000, or support the Sheldon Whitehouse bill, which would scrap the cap on benefits on income over $400,000, or come up with their own plan. Any of you from Iowa? No? Zach Walls is in Iowa, and he has a great proposal he's done that would scrap the cap at a certain level and restore the cuts. So what I've been encouraging candidates to do is to not simply say, like we've heard politicians, both parties say for years, I'll never touch Social Security. That's no longer true. They touched it in a big way by cutting 10,000 almost staff out of it. And we want them to restore those cuts and strengthen her ability to pay 100% of benefits for the far future. Those are the two things. And everyone that's elected to a U.S. Senate seat this year, whether they like it or not, are going to be in that seat when that 2033 cliff hits. So this is not some far-off imagining, some sort of meteor in Chapter 12. This is something that everybody elected to a 6-year term this year needs to be able to answer the question, what are you going to do? What's your proposal? What are the parameters of your proposal? At least what are your principles for avoiding that? Are you willing to restore the cuts and scrap the cap at some level? That's what I'd say. You ask them. And keep dialing it up. Gee, Manise, I've lost so much more hair over the last year trying to convince my own Democratic friends to say the two magic words, Social Security. It is a potent, powerful reason to give the voters to vote for us instead of these guys that want to turn it into Bitcoin or do away with it. So God bless you all. It's been real fun being with you. See you later. Thanks.